welcome to Cedar's Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm Rhonda Peacock. To start, let's acknowledge that members of our congregation occupy the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of Coast Salish tribes, the homelands of the Suquamish, Duwamish, Klallam, and Chimacum people were ceded under duress through the Point Elliott and Point No Point treaties. We're grateful guests on these lands and affirm Indigenous sovereignty both past and present. To acknowledge this does not substitute the need to build authentic relationships with modern-day members of these tribes and to learn about their living culture and history. Our faith community is sustained by the generosity of our members. Your contribution will nourish the spiritual growth of our community through weekly worship and ongoing programs that cultivate connection, belonging, sharing, and caring. Included in the video description and displayed on the screen is information to make a contribution to Cedars through our PayPal account. Please take time either now or later in the service to make a contribution to help sustain Cedars. Your gifts are greatly appreciated. Cedars is committed to being a welcoming and inclusive community. In all the beauty of languages, cultures, and skin tones that come together in your uniqueness, we welcome you. In all the ways you experience and express gender, in the beauty of who and how you love, we welcome you. With all the religious and ethical traditions that inform your spiritual life, we welcome you. You are invited to join us today and always with an open mind, a loving heart, and willing hands. Thank you for joining us today. We're so glad you're here.
As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness, because that is how we will all become the best that we can be.
Blessed Spirit of my life, give me strength to stress and strive. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with a vision. Clear my mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. Then when life is done for me, let love be my legacy.
For our call to worship, I would like to share these words out of the Navajo spiritual tradition. Beauty is before me, and beauty behind me. Above me and below me hovers the beautiful. I am surrounded by it. I am immersed in it. I am in my youth, I am aware of it. And in my old age, I shall walk quietly the beautiful trail. In beauty, it begins. In beauty, it ends. And in beauty, may we come together this day to worship. Come, let us worship together.
With
want to tell you all a story. This is a story that comes out of Paulo Coelho's book, The Alchemist. This is a book I love very much and believe every person, especially every person coming of age, should read at least once in their life. But this story isn't about the main character, Santiago. It's a story that's shared with Santiago. And it's a story that I think is relevant to our exploration of blessings today. And so that's why I share this with you. A long time ago, there was a man who was a shopkeeper in a small village that sat at the edge of a vast desert. This man lived alone with his young son. And as his son was growing up, the man decided that his goal in life for his son was for his son to find the secret to happiness. That's all he wanted for his son, to find the secret to happiness. As the son grew and started to reach the age of adulthood, his father let him know of his desire for the son, to find happiness, the secret to happiness. And so one day, when the time had come after years of preparation, the father sent his son out in the desert on his quest. The boy traveled and traveled and traveled for 40 days through the desert, wandering until at last he came to a hill where there was gardens and a castle built on top of the hill. As he approached, he realized that someone very powerful and likely very wise lived in this place, to have such a wonderful castle with such beautiful gardens. So the boy approaches the door to the castle. He knocks on the door and someone lets him inside, and he's astonished to find a hall full of merchants and traders exchanging their goods, to find craftspeople and artists making all of their wares, to hear musicians playing their instruments, and the chatter of all of these people from different places coming together filled the room. The boy spoke with one of the people who clearly worked in this castle and asked if he might have an audience with the owner. The servant shook their head and agreed and said, "It'll take some time, but yes, you may have an audience." The boy waited for a few hours, and finally the time came for him to have an audience with the owner of the castle. He was led into this great room where there on a chair sat a woman. The woman had a certain wisdom about her. He could tell that she was someone who knew many things that most people hadn't even considered. There was a mysterious quality to her. The boy approached this wise woman, and he told her of his quest, how he was searching for the secret to happiness. The woman smiled and looked at the boy and said, "Yes, I will tell you the secret to happiness. But first, I'd like you to take a few hours and go wander through my palace, wander through my gardens, and look at all the beautiful things that adorn my home. Look at all the art, the plants, the tapestries that fill my life." The boy thinks this is a little bit of a silly request, but agrees to go and do this and begins to leave the room. But before he does, the woman stops him and says, "Wait, while you're wandering through my home and through my gardens, I want you to take this spoon with these drops of oil in it. And as you walk, I want you to do so without spilling the drops of oil in this spoon." The woman then hands the boy a spoon with 2 drops of oil in it and sends him off. He starts exploring the home, and he goes upstairs and downstairs, down long corridors, hits some dead ends. He makes his way through the gardens and over all of the grounds that he can find, places to travel. And after about 2 hours' time, he comes back to the wise woman, carrying the spoon, and says, I have gone through your palace, your house, all of your gardens, and now I have returned to learn the secret to happiness. The woman looks at the boy and asks him, did you notice the fine tapestries in the dining room? The boy shakes his head, no. Did you notice the plush rugs in the hallways, the way they squish under your feet? The boy shakes his head, no. Did you notice all of the flowers in bloom in my garden and the birds? The boy again shakes his head, no, and he says, I was so busy trying to keep these drops of oil from spilling out of the spoon that's all that I could concentrate on. I didn't notice any of those other things around me. The woman says, I expected as much. I'd like you to go through my house, my palace, my gardens again, with the spoon, with the drops of oil. And this time, notice all of the beautiful things that surround you. The boy agrees, still thinking this is kind of a silly errand to be sent on, but trusts that this woman is wise, and so he again sets out, upstairs and downstairs, down corridors, through the garden, all over again. He sees all the beautiful tapestries, the rugs and artwork, the flowers, and then returns to the wise woman. And he declares, I have seen your home. I have seen your gardens and the beauty within them. The wise woman smiles and nods and asks, and what of the drops of oil? The boy looks at the spoon and realizes that in paying attention to all of the things around him, all of these beautiful works of art and plants, he hasn't paid attention to the spoon with the oil. And the oil's no longer in the spoon. Distraught, he looks at the woman, and she looks at him. And she says, the secret to happiness is learning to see all of the majesty and beauty around you while still paying attention to the drops of oil in the spoon. And that's all the story that I have for you today. I want to invite us to take a deep breath together. Let yourself sink into this moment, paying attention to the senses and sensations of the space that you're in, the sounds, the smells, the sights, perhaps the things that you hear, the things that you taste. Awaken your senses. Be mindful of this moment. As I share this blessing by John O'Donohue. May the touch of your skin register the beauty of the otherness that surrounds you. May your listening be attuned to the deeper silence where sound is honed to bring distance home. May the fragrance of breathing meadow refresh your heart and remind you, you are a child of earth. And when you partake of food and drink, may your taste quicken to the gifts and sweetness that flows from the earth. May your inner eye see through the surfaces and gleam and glean the real presence of everything that meets you. May your soul beautify the desire of your eyes, that you might glimpse the infinity that hides in the simple sights that seem worn to your usual eyes. May our senses be open to perceiving the love and beauty within ourselves and the world around us. May it be so.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, the far off hymn that hails a new creation.
No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing?
While all the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. And though the darkness round me grows, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? I lift my eyes, the cloud grows thin. I see the blue above it, and day by day this pathway smooths. Since first I learned to love it, no storm can shake my inmost calm. I hear the music ringing, it sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep
There's a joke about Unitarian Universalists and blessings that I want to share with you. It goes like this. There once was a woman who had worked very hard in her professional life, and she found herself at a place where she had quite a bit of financial success. And she's decided to do something to treat herself, something special. She was going to go buy the car of her dreams, a Maserati. Woman goes to the car dealership. She finds the car that she wants, and after a bit of time negotiating on the price, she makes the decision and she buys the car outright. It's hers. Her dream car is hers. As she's getting in the car and preparing to drive off of the lot, a thought crosses her head. You know, this is a rather significant moment for me. I feel like I should do something to mark the occasion. You know, I think I should have someone say a blessing on my car. That's a good idea, she thought. But you see, this woman was not a member of a faith community of her own, and so she came up with the idea of just driving around and looking for a house of worship and seeing if there was someone there who might be able to perform the blessing. She starts the car and drives off, and in a few blocks she finds herself looking at a Catholic church. She parks the car, gets out, goes into the church, finds the priest, and says, "Father, I just bought a new Maserati. I'm wondering, would you come out and be willing to say a blessing on it?" The priest stands up from behind his desk, looks at her, and says, "Of course, my child. I'd be happy to say a blessing. But I do have one question. What's a Maserati?" The woman decides that if this priest doesn't even know what a Maserati is, he's probably not the guy she wants blessing her car. And she says, on second thought, never mind. She goes back out to the car, gets in it, starts driving around again, looking for another house of worship, somewhere where she can go to have someone say the blessing. After a bit of driving, she finds herself now looking at a synagogue. She parks the car, gets out, walks in, and goes and finds the rabbi and says, "Rabbi, I just bought a new Maserati, and I was really hoping you might come out and be willing to say a blessing." The rabbi said, of course, I'd love to say a blessing. But I have one question. What's a Maserati?" Again, she's frustrated. Does no one who works in a church or house of worship know what a Maserati is? I don't want these people to bless my car. She gets in it again, starts driving around, and she passes several houses of worship. There's churches, a Lutheran church, a Baptist church, and finally she sees a Unitarian Universalist church. She goes, I think this might be the place. Parks the car, gets out of the car, goes in and finds the minister. The minister is sitting at her desk as this woman comes in, and she says to the minister, "Reverend, I just bought a new Maserati, and I was hoping you might come out and be willing to say a blessing over it." The minister jumps up with excitement and she says, "Oh my God, you got a Maserati? I've always loved those cars. You've just got to let me drive it. Just once around the block. I promise I'll be careful." The woman's excited. Here is someone who gets her. They go out of the church. Together, they both get in the car. She hands the minister the keys. The minister starts up the car, and they drive around the block and come back and park in front of the church. Parked there, the minister turns and looks to the woman and says, "That was so much fun. I can't believe you own this car. That's awesome. But I do have one question. What's a blessing?" As Unitarian Universalists, at times this can seem like a valid question for us. What's a blessing? How do blessings work? What causes something to be blessed or sanctified or consecrated or not? Can anyone offer a blessing, or is it only people who are ordained? These are all questions worth considering. In John O'Donohue's book, the book where our prayer, our meditation came out of today, to bless the space between us, he asks the same question raised in the joke I told. He asks, what's a blessing? Only, unlike in the joke, O'Donohue goes on to spend some time teasing out and defining what exactly a blessing is in the first place. He writes that a blessing is a circle of light drawn around a person to protect, heal, and strengthen. Life is a constant flow of emergence. The beauty of blessing is its belief that it can affect what unfolds. The beauty of blessing is its belief that it can affect what unfolds. No, I don't think John O'Donohue really means that a blessing is going and drawing a circle of light around someone with like a flashlight or some other light source we might think of. I think it's more of a metaphoric, a way of holding people in our thoughts and prayers, that it's about sort of the imagining and opening ourselves to possibilities. And to speak about the presence of these blessings, John O'Donohue says that we know that they exist because of the beauty that we encounter in the world. He says, the beauty of the world is the first witness to blessing. In a land without blessing, no beauty could dwell. This is because O'Donohue believes that we as sentient beings, as people who can have our own internal processes, that we exist at the shore between the visible and invisible worlds. That somehow, because of our ability to engage with the external realities of the world, while also maintaining our own interior presence within our being, our own thoughts and reactions to things, that we somehow are uniquely positioned to witness the places where the material and spiritual merge, and through witnessing such a merger, perceive beauty. That beauty is the result of this merger, of bringing together the physical and the spiritual, the internal and the external. And that this beauty is also the evidence, the proof that blessings exist. That's what he means when he says beauty is the first witness to blessing. Beauty marks the place where that circle of light has been drawn in a way that affects what is unfolding. The first time that I experienced a blessing in a Unitarian Universalist setting was when I started my studies at Starr King School for the Ministry. As a new student at Starr King, there's a ceremony called the Threshold Ceremony that is a ceremony meant to welcome the new students into the community. In this ritual, the incoming class is gathered outside of the school on the sidewalk, facing toward the front door. Then, once assembled, the president of the school comes and gives each new student a lit candle. While all this is happening, the current students, staff, and faculty stand on the front steps of the school, facing out towards all these new faces. And in that moment, make a commitment to each other, inviting each other into a space of exploration and learning. Inviting these new students to cross over the threshold of this building, of this house of learning, as they put it, to enter the school and begin the journey of seminary education called formation. Once we crossed over the threshold, everyone gathered together in the school chapel, and songs were sung as each of us was called by name and invited to place our lit candle on a central table, representing our place in this community. The experience of this ritual carried with it a quality expressed when John O'Donohue writes, "A threshold is not simply an accidental line that happens to separate one region from another. Often, one threshold becomes clearly visible only once you have crossed it. Crossing can often mean total loss of that you enjoyed while on the other side. Total loss of what you enjoyed while on the other side. This threshold becomes a dividing line between the past and future. More often than not, the reason that you cannot return to where you were is that you have changed. You are no longer the one who crossed over. Once you cross a threshold, something in you changes. The threshold ceremony that I experienced conveyed that feeling of flow that moves you from one state of being to another. There was a sense of beauty in the songs that were sung that it enveloped me. I also still remember the words that were shared that day. The words of the school president, Reverend Rosemary Bray McNett. She reminded us, saying, "Not all days will feel like this one. This is a joyous day. But there will be days that aren't. There will be days when it feels like no one is with you. Days when you cry and wonder if you can go on. There will be hard days. And on those days, remember how it felt when you first crossed the threshold of this school. Remember this day." The words felt ominous at the time, but have also served as a source of strength during some of the hard days that I have faced since. Recently, I've heard the words come up in my mind as a reminder, as a blessing. When I recall those words, it does feel a bit as if a circle of light is surrounding me. It may not be real light with photons, but these words carried a blessing and feeling of lightness nonetheless. There was something in that moment that once experienced has not been forgotten. For me, this is what a blessing is. A blessing can be words or an action or simply pausing to notice the change that is unfolding around you and the beauty that is present in that change. I think back to the story I shared about the boy and the wise woman. As the boy walked through the palace and gardens, focusing on the drops of oil in the spoon, he missed all of the beauty all around him. It's only when the wise woman asked him if he noticed the fine tapestries and rugs, the works of art, the gardens, that he realized that he had indeed missed all of the beautiful things. In missing the beauty around us, we miss the many blessings that are open to us. When this happens, we miss the opportunity to find meaning in those hard places of life. In John O'Donohue's book, he offers words of blessing to be shared at many different occasions. Some of them are happy and joyous occasions. Words to say for the birth of a new child. Words to share before a meal. Words to bless a new home. Others are words for the harder things that we face, for the dying, words to share when we've lost a friend, or words to pause and contemplate when we feel exhausted. The through line, as I see it, in the words that O'Donoghue offers, is the way in which they invite us to recognize each of these circumstances and pause to find the beauty and meaning in what is happening. It's like the wise woman told the young boy, the secret to happiness is to see all the marvelous things of the world and never forget the drops of oil in the spoon. Similarly, the secret to blessing is to see all the beauty that exists in all the spaces between the seen and unseen. To be able to see the beauty even in those hard and difficult places. This is what blessings help us do. In his words of blessing for those who are facing the end of their life, for instance, O'Donoghue encourages the dying to make peace with their death, to learn to, quote, see the reflection of your life's kindness and beauty in all the tears that fall for you. Imagine that. Someone at their deathbed, to be offered the blessing, to see the reflection of your life's kindness and beauty in all the tears that fall for you. To see the kindness and beauty in the hard fact of death that we each must face. These words encourage an acceptance of change that is coming, and instead of resisting it, encouraging us to embrace it with grace. For me, this is the heart of what a blessing is. It is an act that gives us courage and strength to face the unpleasantness of certain situations while remaining grounded in the beauty that is manifest between the shore that is manifest between the invisible and visible worlds. I hope that you'll take the time as you're moving through your world in the week ahead, when you're in those threshold moments, when you're facing a decision, to think about where the blessing is, to think about where that beauty is. Perhaps as you're getting ready to leave your house, to just pause, to close your eyes and take a breath, and to set your intention of how you will engage with the beauty in the world, even when things feel hard. This is how we cultivate blessings. This is how we share blessings. This is how we all can do our part to choose to bless the world to the glory of life.
And give you peace.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our service has ended, but our service to the world and one another begins anew. May we go forth and choose to be a source of blessing in a world in desperate need of blessings. May it be so.